Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode, we are back out in the tiny home bus build, and this is episode number 2. There's a little bit of a twist going on here because if you guys caught episode number 1 of the bus build, I mentioned that next episode was going to be more towards spring, and it was going to be a tour of the outside of the bus, as episode number 1 was a full walkthrough of the interior. However, I've been gaining a lot of questions and comments on the channel as to how am I going to power the bus. I mentioned I was going to be using portable battery units, and I got flocked with emails and questions and comments asking why. So in today's episode, I'm going to share why and the reasons I chose to go this way from the start of the build. So let's get started. Okay, so to get things started, I want to take a little bit of time and just go around all these battery units, and yes, there is a lot, and put a name and brand to each model just so you guys know what I'm working with here in the bus. And we're going to talk a little bit more about these, not dive into whole specs because this is not a review. However, if you guys are interested, I will have more reviews on these battery units, just like I do with this big Ucatel one on my other gear review channel. Link is down in the description. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over on this side, and I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm going to name each battery unit so you guys know exactly what is here. So over here we have a Go Labs battery unit. That is a small one. We then have a battery unit from Rock Pals, which is a medium sized. We then have one from Big Blue. We have one from Primax up here. Over behind me, this is a very large battery unit from Bluetti. Right next to that is another large battery unit from Ucatel. We then have a smallish type battery unit from Amp Road. I then have one from EcoFlow. I have one up here from Flashfish, a small one, another small one from TrekPow, another small one from, I'm not too sure on the name of this guy actually, from Paxess, it says on the back. And then underneath of that, we have another one from Nightcore. It looks a little large, but it's actually a smaller battery unit. So obviously I have options here. This is the primary reason why I chose to run my bus on battery units, because I can move them in and out of the bus and not have to worry about hardwiring in a big system with a hardwired inverter, all the wires, shunts, and all that stuff, and then chew up more space in my trunk area, which I'll be showing you a little later on in the video. So these battery units can be moved all around the bus, and a lot of people questioned and said, geez, it's going to be awful difficult to have multiple battery units placed everywhere. Wouldn't it be easier just to have one area with a built-in battery bank? Well, I built this cabinet down here specifically for batteries. All of these batteries, obviously not all of them at the same time, but primarily these two large battery units, which are 2,000 watts a piece, those two large ones fit up there. And then this guy down here, which I believe is about a 1,200 watt unit, that actually fits inside of it. So that brings me up to almost 5,000 or almost 5,500 watts of power just right here in portable battery units that I can then move inside, outside. I can move them into my truck. I can bring them into my house. I can do whatever I need to do. If I'm going on a shorter trip, I can possibly bring a smaller battery unit, maybe a medium-sized battery unit, instead of tying up a whole bunch of room in the trunk, like I said, with a big elaborate battery setup and then a big AC to DC converter and all that stuff going on there, and an inverter and all that stuff. These battery units have everything built inside of them. They're smart units. They have all the ports already built into them. AC, DC, USB, PDs, and they already have an inverter built into them and a charge controller as well. Alright, so I want to bring you guys in close on two of these larger battery units and just explain a couple of the features here, just to the people that are not aware of what these batteries can offer in different brands, different price ranges, and different sizes. So these are two smart battery units. They have LCD screens with all kinds of information on them. You guys can see the Bluetti is a little more hard to read with the reflection, but the Ucatel is very legible and easy to read. All the ports on here are already built into the units. The Bluetti has little rubber doors over, just little dust protectors to kind of cover all of these hookups. But essentially, these are smart batteries ready to rock. We don't have to wire them in. We don't have to wire in USB outputs all around our build. We don't have to put in PD ports all over the van or the bus build. Everything is right here. So what that means is basically I could plug in, put my device on top, charge it, or I can plug in lights that are already hardwired into the bus. I can use some 12 volt over here if I need to, cigarette lighter, and on the LCD screens there's all kinds of information available to give me input power, output power, percentage, and how many hours at that output range is left in the battery, which is extremely useful while using these in an off-grid situation. So coming over here to take a look at two of the smaller battery units, this is the Go Labs and this is the Primax. You'll notice that the LCD screens are physically smaller, but they're also lacking in a lot of information in comparison to the other larger smart batteries. This particular unit has a wattage meter, so it'll tell me how much input and how much output is being used. It tells me how many hours are left in the battery, and it tells me how much percentage is left in the battery. Coming over here to the Primax, we'll just get this turned on again. This one gives me a temperature range, so it'll tell me if it's too hot or too cold. It also gives me an input power separate and an output power separate, which is much different from this. This will only give me the readout of the input or output only in one numerical value. This one has two separate values. It doesn't give me an hourly range of how long it's going to run for, but it does give me a 100% battery bar to then kind of monitor that to basically come up with my own formulation of how long this is going to run with whatever accessories I have plugged in here running at that wattage. So having a look at three other options here, we do have a small unit, a smaller unit, and a rather large unit, but this one's turned in a different direction, so it slides into compartments a little easier rather than being turned its widthwise. So all the ports are on the front of this battery, and it does give me the input, the output, the battery life, and how many hours are going to be calculated depending on how much output is being used. Up here on the small battery unit, it then gives me the same information, input, output, battery life, but it does not give me a numerical value of how long it's going to last. This one also features lights on the outside, so there is a button to turn on these lights. So not only does it have a built-in charge controller and an inverter, but it also has built-in lights if you need them. This smaller unit over here only gives me an output and a battery percentage. There is no other information on this, so this is kind of a risky one to use on big pull items because you don't know how long it's going to last. Alright, so that's a little bit of information for you guys to think about what these batteries can offer and what they do have built into them as far as capabilities. But how do you charge them? So I also have a number of portable solar panels. So this one is a 4-panel flat packable 100-watt solar panel. So it does have these little kickstand legs out the back, and basically I could stand this in a solar array outside on an angle and collect the sunlight during the daytime. All these solar panels have different outputs. So for example, this particular unit from Go Labs, I will unzip the control port here. It has 2 leads which are MC4 compatible, which is extremely useful, especially for those who actually have fixed solar panels on their roof. You're already going to be running most likely MC4 cables coming into your vehicle. Well, now we can use MC4 cables and run those panels in series and gain more solar. Now this particular panel also has a little bit of a converter inside of it. So it has USB ports and a PD port and a 12-volt port. So I can literally set this panel up by itself with no battery and then plug in my cell phone and charge my cell phone just with the solar panel. Not all of them have that option, but like I said, the one from Go Labs, which goes to this battery unit here, it does have that option. It also has the cable to pair it into the 12-volt input. And like I said, it also has an MC4 cable. So this particular unit is actually looking out for multi-use. So you can use it with many other battery units, not just with the Go Labs brand. Coming over here, I have another 100-watt solar panel from Big Blue. You'll notice that this one is very, very slim and streamlined. It opens up in 2 separate panels. It's kind of a plasticky feel. It's interesting. It's very nice. It's thin, it's small. It does have the kickstand legs that fold out. So I believe this one folds out from the bottom. So they all have these kickstand legs. This one, however, does not have a control charge panel or a smart unit to plug in USB. So this one only has a 12-volt SAE output, which is still very useful because SAE cables and connectors are extremely common, and you can get any type of connector coming off of an SAE. So I could plug an SAE connector into this panel and then go out to an MC4 or another SAE or a 5.0mm or a 6mm or an 8mm XT60. There's all kinds of outputs you can run off of an SAE. So this solar panel, particular one, goes to the big blue unit, which I do have the charge cable for that. So I could charge that up. I can also charge up other battery units. We then come down to a very large solar panel. So this one's from Bluetti. This one's a 200 watt unit. It does have 4 panels that fold out. It has 4 separate kickstands, and it does have an MC4 cable. So opening this guy up is very basic. It just has the MC4 cables, and of course you can run these in series or run them together. Now I actually have 2 of these, so I have a total of 400 watts to go to my Bluetti AC200 battery unit. The benefit of this is I can also run different cables from an MC4 to then charge other battery units by using the SAE conversion. So running these small battery units is no problem to charge them, especially when you have a ton of solar panels to go with them. Different ports, different brands. Some types have proprietary plugs, so you do have to have a certain panel for a certain battery, but like I said, you can piggyback off of SAE cables and MC4 connectors, and even making your own harnesses to charge these up. Running a permanent solution of having a big battery bank underneath in your trunk area that has to charge through a charge controller and running through MC4 connectors to solar panels up on the roof can be problematic. Okay, so really quickly before I take you guys outside to the side door of the bus and in towards the trunk, which is still under construction, I do want to take just a moment to explain how I'm running my lights. So I do have 12 volt lights up here. They're individually controlled, but they're all running to the same battery unit. I also have 2 more up here, and these are from off of Amazon. They're very basic to find, but the reason why I went with these lights particularly is the switches are on the lights. So I don't have to run around running switches all over the place, go from the front of the bus, and then come all the way back to turn a light on or off. I can reach these 2 from inside of the bed at nighttime, simply reach out, turn them on, turn them off. I also have lights wired in the back that hook up to a USB port, which is then routed underneath the bed, coming out into my smart area is what I call it. This is the battery unit area. And all of my plugs to all of my strip lights. So I do have LED lights underneath the trim work here. Viewers that have already seen the tour of the bus, you know what I'm talking about. I also have all kinds of LED strip lights under the table, in the shelving units, everywheres. So these lights up here are actually not going to be run off of these battery units, even though they pull very, very little power. My bus is equipped with 2 batteries. There's one under the hood to start the vehicle, and then there's actually an accessory battery underneath the floor to the bus, because my particular bus was actually wheelchair accessible. So I had a full wheelchair lift back here, and that's what that battery helped operate. Right now, the only thing that battery is operating, because it is on an isolator, it's operating these lights. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, which pull almost no power at all. And it operates the electric doors to get in and outside of the bus, which I have installed a switch outside as well as inside, so I can gain access with the electric doors. Of course, there's a manual override, but that is basically all that I'm using to run my lights. Now, the battery underneath the floor is also going to be used with a fuse panel pack outside, which I'll take you guys outside in a second to show you. That's going to be there to run power to a hose. So if I'm outside and I want to spray off some shoes or do some cleaning of any sort, I have a compressor and a pump out back and all kinds of things that are going in there. It'll take care of all that. My diesel heater, which I did install, is run right here. Cigarette lighter off of a battery unit. So those who are wondering, yes, you can run a diesel heater off battery units, and it actually does not pull a lot of power. When it's in its high fan stage and it's heating up, it pulls, my particular unit is an 8 kilowatt diesel heater. It pulls between 45 and 50 watts until it gets up to the temperature, and then it goes into its floating state and it only pulls like 10 or 15 watts. That is nothing for a medium or a large size battery unit to handle, and honestly, it doesn't bother me at all. When I'm on the road, I can simply take a battery unit, bring it up to the front of the bus. I have 2 cigarette lighters up there. I can then plug it into 12 volt and charge while I'm on the road. And when I do get my solar panels installed on the roof, I'll have MC4 connectors inside of here. I can then plug these in and charge inside of the bus as I'm driving down the road. Now I know that's a lot of information. I want to try and cover as much as possible to give you guys a good idea of why I chose to go with movable battery units instead of a permanent setup. So I'm going to put my shoes on. We're going to go outside in the cold around the side and the back of the bus. I'm going to show you guys how much room I have back there now that I don't have to worry about a charge controller and a battery bank. All right, everybody, this is the side entrance of my bus. And basically what I've got going on here is I built a wall, and that separates this side from the other side because the other side is going to be actual storage. And this side is actually going to be my outside shower area. So I will have a propane heated shower unit hanging up here. I already do have a light installed up here, which is run into my fuse panel. Now this wiring is a total mess right now because it is not done. I still have to run wood over that insulation as well as behind me and just tidy up this area. But right now, giving you guys a sneak peek, you can see my 8 kilowatt diesel heater is located here. I made a custom mount on a box to raise it up off of the floor, and I've got that running straight into the wall, which is right where my battery units are. Now I have it tilted outwards so the heat's not going to blow on the batteries and overheat them. It actually blows off to the side. So that's all taken care of, but this is what I was talking about as far as space. So generally, if you had a permanent battery installation, you would have to have a bank of batteries. So literally this entire spot would have been full of large lithium iron phosphate batteries, which not only are heavy, and you really have to pay attention to where you're putting those in your van because it can actually tip your van, different weight distribution. So with this particular setup, this, like I said, is going to be my outdoor shower area, my kind of utility area. I do have a garden hose hooked up here to a small little output, which then connects up to this water pump, and this goes into a water jug. So this is also going to be my water storage and my propane tank storage. That way when I've got the propane shower up here, the tank will be here. I simply turn it on, flick it on, have a hot shower. The shower curtain is actually going to hang on the top side of these doors. So I will literally be standing inside of the shower stall right here outside, hook that shower head up here, and this will be my outdoor shower area. And I can just do things a little bit more efficiently outside than I could inside, even in the winter time. I have no problem running out here in my boxer shorts, taking a quick shower, running inside of the wood stove. It doesn't bother me at all. Keep in mind, I am not living full time in this build, and we'll talk more about that when we make it inside of the bus. Let's take a look at the back real quick, and then we will go back inside. All right, so coming around to the back of the bus, I do have a very large door. This was basically the rear entrance of the bus, and the wheelchair lift was on the side of the bus, those two doors that we just came from. But as you guys can see, I'm still working back here. There's still tools and all kinds of things. If you look really close in the back, you can actually make out my refrigerator, and I covered that in the last episode with that pull-out drawer. So the refrigerator is accessible from there. This little window is the bedroom up here, and I can actually squeeze in and out of that hole, believe it or not. But mainly what I use that for is grabbing things out of the trunk and passing them through. That way I don't have to make a whole bunch of trips around the bus and come back. So things like firewood, if I had firewood stored in here, I could pass a couple pieces, run around, have this door shut, and then I got what I need. But basically, this is my storage trunk area. I'm going to have all kinds of tools, chainsaws, all kinds of things back here, utility-wise, and extra food storage. So I'll give you guys a quick look inside with the camera, just so you guys can get an idea of the layout, and then we're going to make our way back inside. All right, so it is a little bit difficult to get the grand scheme of things of what I have planned back here and to kind of justify size, but this is a 12-inch miter saw, so that can probably give you guys some size. This is a 15-liter diesel tank. That is for the diesel heater. And I placed it on this wall, tilted back. So this way I can actually open up the rear door, stick in the nozzle at the gas pump, and introduce diesel into there. On the far left side, you guys will notice there is a diesel jug down there that is full of diesel fuel. There will also be 2 other gas jugs back there just in case I run out of gasoline on the road. And of course, these tools will not be in here, so that it opens up all of this area inside of here. And of course, I still need to sheet in all the insulation, and that'll give me little mounts for the wall to add hooks and various areas to then hang more gear. I do have another light switch up here. It is not hooked up totally yet, but that should give you guys the idea of where my light is. That is run to the junction box on the other side, which is operated and protected by fuses. Right now the fuse is in there, but it is totally not finished being wired. I have a lot more work to do in that case. But just a quick little look in the back to give you guys an idea. We'll make our way back inside where it's nice and warm now. right, so I'm making my way back inside. Toasty warm in here. And for those of you who are wondering, I did get my curtains totally finished. So right now I do have the curtains hung in the front of the bus, and that curtain does span across the doorway, which gives me total privacy in the bus to do whatever I feel like in the evening, as well as the curtains that go all along the side windows. I use blackout curtains, so they're actually thermal blocking as well, and seems to work really well. I just ordered just a generic set off Amazon. I did have to cut them and sew them to fit, and I just ran them through these little eyelet hooks and punched some eyelets in the material. Everything works really, really well. So, back to the batteries. Okay, so it is much warmer in here. Give you guys a little bit of an update. I do have a temperature probe up here, and I've got my smart control panel over here as well for my diesel heater and my battery capacity voltage meter for the battery underneath the floor. That way I don't drain it. It is 1.5 degrees Celsius outside. Inside right now it is 25.9 degrees Celsius. That wood stove is kicking out some serious heat. So, now that you guys did have a little bit of a sneak peek on the side of the bus and the back of the bus and a little bit of the outside, you guys can clearly see that all of my storage room outside of the bus is literally storage room. It's not a workshop for batteries. I don't need to worry about my batteries getting cold outside, because realistically, all of my batteries are inside, which is then going to stay warm from my wood stove or my diesel heater, just like I am. So I don't have to worry about batteries getting damaged due to cold or wetness or getting bumped around or banged around. I don't have to worry about permanent wiring situations. I don't have to worry about charge controllers. I don't have to worry about any of that. If one of these batteries happens to kick the dust and just stop working, I just simply replace the battery unit. I don't have to go back there and test all the batteries, figure out which one it is. If I have a charge controller go down, that means all my batteries are now useless. If I lose one, I've got a number of other battery units to rely on. So this is kind of a 2 is 1, 1 is none situation. I mean, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 battery units right now, varying in size and capacity to power the electricity that I need inside of here. And realistically, the only large pull items that I personally have inside of my bus is my refrigerator. My refrigerator runs, that pulls about 35 to 40 watts in the summertime. While I have it set at a fridge, I can set it to a freezer, but while it's set to a refrigerator, it's usually about 35 watts once it gets the temperature. And that pretty much is my large pull item. Like I said, these lights are run off of 12 volt in the floor, which is charged by the alternator in the van. So it doesn't really bother me to fire it up, put a little bit of juice in there, as well as using my capacity meter on the side to then show me how much life is in there. So, pros and cons of permanent battery installation versus removable battery installation. Me personally, if I were living in the bus full time, I would have both. I would have a unit, probably about 1,000 watt, maybe 1 or 2 batteries permanently installed in the back of the bus, and I would lay them out flat kind of in the center. That way the weight distribution is even, and I'd have a charge controller and all that stuff back there. I would also have a secondary input-output for MC4, so while the MC4 panels on the roof with the solar would be connected to that charge controller, I would also have a little output there that I can actually output to a battery unit to run inside, and then have some cables here. That way I could charge up the permanent batteries and the temporary batteries. The reason why I'd go with both is basically for reliability's sake. I don't need to rely on all that solar. And not only that, when you're not in the solar season, most people put their solar panels up on the roof. Well, I'm in the northern hemisphere, and right now it is wintertime. It is non-solar season. So the sun literally comes up on the angle of the bus. That's not really going to hit the roof, and it's not going to get that much efficiency out of those cells. Using these folding portable cells, I can simply set them up on the ground and tilt them on an angle using the provided legs, or I can even hang them vertically all along the outside of the bus. I can do 1 panel, 2 panel, 3 panel, 4 panel, and that'll get sunlight basically all day during the winter time, which is something that is very unique. I mean, you can't take your permanent solar panels off the roof that easily and move it around and, you know, all that mess. So these are definitely useful in my situation, and most likely with yours as well, now that your brain is kind of thinking about it. So going with these battery units, talking about cost, they are expensive. Did I purchase all of these? No, I did not. All these companies basically reached out to me and said, hey, are you interested in our product? And I looked at it and I said, you know what? I am interested and I can use the product. No, these are not sponsored items. These are all sent to me with my discretion as to how I want to use them. And we're sitting inside of a mini home, guys. So this is exactly my intention for them, is to put them to good use. I also use these in my truck camper build when I'm off-roading and sleeping in the back of the truck. I'll choose 1 or 2, maybe 3 of these battery units, bring them in my truck, power my fridge, power my lights, everything that I need, which is awesome. I don't have to have a permanent build in my truck. I could just grab a battery, take it in my truck, my bus, or in my house, or take it down to the beach. If I'm parked at a beach, I can grab a battery unit, take it down to the beach, plug in a few things. Maybe I'm in the woods and the beach has the sunshine, so I could take the battery and the solar panel down to the beach, set it in the sunlight, and let it do its thing, where my van wouldn't be able to fit through the trees to get out to the sunshine. So those are some things to think about. Permanent van build with the battery unit, or a temporary van build with a movable battery source. Something to think about for sure. Alright, so I hope this video was helpful. I know it was a lot of information, but a lot of it is worth thinking about and really watching the video through and kind of thinking about things in your personal situation and which would be more beneficial, a built-in system or a portable system. So with that in mind, I'm going to end this video here. I thank you guys very much. If you have not checked out episode number 1 of the bus tour, Everything Inside, please do so. You guys will have a better understanding of what is going on here. And there will be an episode number 2, because I'm not considering this as episode number 2. This is more of a battery installation, electronic kind of featured video. But the full bus tour episode 2 will be on the outside of the bus. I'm scheduling that more towards the spring, maybe in the summer. And then there will be a final episode number 3 when everything inside and outside is totally finished. But like I said before, I may work in another episode here and there just to bring you guys up to speed on some of the changes that are happening here in the bus build. With that said, that is all I got for you guys today. So peace out. Catch you in the next video.